Hello everyone, and welcome back to a new webinar in the series on behalf of Edições ASA to support English teachers in the Segundo Ciclo. My name is Dave Tucker, as you can probably see, and today we're going to be looking at dealing with mixed ability in the classroom, especially as regards productive skills, so writing and speaking activities. The title of the session is Making It Easy, which may seem a little ambitious, but the idea is that we're going to be looking at approaches and strategies that we can apply on a day-to-day basis that don't involve hours of preparation and reworking and rewriting and making different handouts for different levels of students. We're looking at strategies that we can put into place on a day-to-day basis when we recognize that the more confident or less students need a little more or a little less support, a little more or a little less challenge. So let's move on to some general principles that will guide us through this topic. The first one being perhaps that we should not forget that as part of the Segundo Ciclo materials by Edições ASA, the course book and the teacher's resource file for the 5th and 6th year contain a wealth of material specifically designed to support the differentiated levels in the classroom. There are templates to make writing more accessible and more enjoyable for less confident students. There are schemes to help them through a dialogue, give them extra support, extra vocabulary, extra phrases. There are differentiated worksheets on different skills so that different students can approach it at their level and keep that level of achievement and feeling of achievement as a consistent part of their English studies. There are tests at different levels, there are listenings at different levels, there's all sorts of ways that you can cater for your differentiated ability in the classroom built into the Edições ASA Segundo Ciclo materials and coursebook. But, as I said, we're looking at the day-to-day procedure where you might be in the classroom doing an activity and you realise that you need to put something into practice which you haven't brought into the classroom with you. So, general principles that guide this type of approach. The first one may seem obvious, but I think it's worth saying that all students can improve under the right circumstances. Some will need more support, some will need less support, some will need more challenge, some will need less challenge, but all students are capable of improving. A point that we should make here is that the student, like that classic psychology joke, the student also has to want to improve. I can give you an example of one situation where I realized I was fighting a losing battle where I'd given one of my students a report card to take home to his parents. I was working in a very small village school outside Condeixa Nova. I had a large class of primary school students in the village of Sebal, and one of my students had obviously decided that English wasn't for him. I asked him to show his report to his parents and asked his father if he could come in. He brought back a message from his father saying, my son doesn't need to study English, he's not going to need it in the future, he's going to work with me on the farm, so English is going to be of no use to him, please don't send me any more reports. That took the wind out of my sails a bit, and that's an example maybe of where the right circumstances were not easy to find. I dare say the father had sent the same message to the maths teacher and the Portuguese teacher and all other teachers as well. His son was going to work on the farm. All he needed to know was manual labour, which I hope he had a fulfilling and productive life on the farm. Didn't make my job as an English teacher any easier. Anyway, most students can improve under the right circumstances. They have to want to be part of that process as well. The improvement we see can often be incremental, which actually means that we don't often see it on a day-to-day basis. It's slow, it's gradual, it's incremental, and if we compared that student at the beginning and the end of the year, we might see that they could well transition from below average to above average over the year, but it may be difficult to see as I say, on a day-by-day basis. We have to be patient, we have to be supportive, we have to keep applying the strategies and giving the students the opportunity and the circumstances they need to change. And they can make radical changes. Again, a particular example from my experience was a student I had years and years ago, more than 35 years ago, when I was working in Viseu. And one of my students was having great difficulty following the level, keeping up, grasping the language, until they realized that he had a hearing problem. They gave him a hearing aid, and he soon became one of the best students in the class. Now, that is an exceptional situation, I agree, but it is worth remembering that radical changes can take place. Challenge is good. Challenge in some situations has a negative connotation, doesn't it? If you feel over-challenged, you might get demotivated, but the right level of challenge, where students recognize that something is difficult but they can achieve it, and they feel that dopamine rush of satisfaction at the end of achieving something which they recognize was difficult but managed to do, is a really good thing to present to your students. We have to get to know them, we have to find out what their level is, we have to keep pitching things that little bit more difficult as they go through and they get incrementally better, but challenge is good, not always making it too easy for them. And the growth mindset is a big part of this. If we can encourage our students to keep thinking that if I make an effort, I can keep getting better, and helping them realize that the progress they made in that last activity, the result they got, which maybe they didn't expect, was a result of their application and hard work, and well done for putting in that hard work. The same with the good students. Not just that they're naturally talented, but that the more they try, the more they make that effort, the better they can get. The effort provides the progress, not the student's own inbuilt supposed level of proficiency or ability or intelligence. The more you try, the better you get. The growth mindset really helps students move forward. And just a reminder that we can find ourselves, and I know I've done this many times, focusing on the students who need that extra help, who need that push, who need that support, who need that nurturing sometimes. And it's easy to forget the ones who seem to be finding it easy. They also need some attention, they also need some support, they also need a little push to keep them moving forward. A happy student is one who keeps moving forward and gets the recognition for doing so, and can recognize that they did so because of their effort, and really realize that they can keep moving forward and being more and more successful. So we need to remember that we have a range in our classes, and all of our students need support at their own particular levels. Now, strategies to apply in the classroom. I've termed the first one, work with what you've got. Now, what I mean by this is two different directions, two ways of working with what you've got, which we'll exemplify here. The first one being working with what you've got on the page in front of you. Very often there is a range of exercises in your course book. They'll be engaging, they'll be brightly coloured, they'll be fun very often. And what we might forget after giving those students the opportunity to complete that exercise and doing them some feedback and pointing out mistakes and helping them move forward based on that exercise as it is on the page, is that very often we can adapt exercises as a pre-thought or as an afterthought, and build them into something a little bit different, a little more challenging, a little more engaging, and cater for students at different levels. Now, one way to do this is, as I say, to take an exercise that's in your course book on the page and to make your own version. When I say your own version, I mean the students make their own version and give it to a classmate. Let's look at this example from a fifth year activity talking about family relations, using simple sentences with the verb to be and the possessive pronoun or possessive determiner, I beg your pardon, possessive determiner, my, and students have read these simple sentences, looked at the information in the picture by the side, made their deductions, and matched the beginning and the end of the sentences. Now, it could finish there. Well done, job well done. Good, you recognised it. Well done, you're learning the vocabulary you need to talk about family relations. But an extra step is to give a little variation for the stronger students. Those students, of course, who will be finishing early very often, can write their own sentences based on this structure and start producing small, written, safe, controlled sentences around the same language, the same lexis, and the same simple structure, while other students are finishing their initial exercise. The strong students can be, or the more confident students can be, writing their own sentences, again, based on the picture, based on the family tree that they use to complete the initial one, writing new ones, and when the initial exercise is all finished and fed back, then they can hand those sentences to others, to the less confident students who get more exposure, more opportunity to carefully think and have some quiet time to work through the new versions given to them and produced for them by their colleagues. The smart ones, that's not the right word, the confident ones get to do a little extra and get pushed a little more. The less confident ones get an extra opportunity for more exposure and more thinking time. Everyone benefits. Just taking an exercise that's already on the page and asking students to extend it a little further. That's one way. You can do this with all sorts of exercises. Once you start recognizing the potential, you can do it with many different types of exercises that are right there on the page. Another way is working with what you've got. When we come to something like a speaking task, a presentation maybe, where students have done some preparation for their speaking by making some notes, sometimes making a text based around those notes as stepping stones towards the speaking production, then obviously we can work with what they've got in terms of their notes and their text and ask them to do it with, partially with, or totally without their notes or text or intermediate version that they've got on the page. This is something we'll come back to later in this session, this incremental steps towards constant improvement. It works especially well for speaking, and it should be remembered that students benefit and often enjoy doing a speaking activity not just once but multiple times. Not for the whole class, obviously. These types of activities should be done in small groups, in pairs, and each time they address the activity and try it again, it helps to do it with a different partner and different person in the group. So they're not always listening to the same thing multiple times, and they don't have to have that patience to listen to their partner going through their incremental steps. But a less confident student can do it first with the support of the full text, and then do it with another partner with just their notes, and then maybe even try it with a third partner, working simply from what they can remember and what they've gained in confidence doing the intermediate versions and without their notes. The strong students, the confident students, can maybe do it once with their notes and then as the next step with no support, no written support, and then a next step as the others are doing their 3-step process. The strong students can do their final step, again with no notes, and see how they improve, see what was better, see where they need to make a change to keep moving forward. You'll find students always notice their progress between these different stages, and they enjoy it and they want to try it again. I think it's a really useful way to get them to keep improving. In terms of guidance, we obviously as teachers are there to give guidance. It's one of our main roles in the classroom. We can direct students' attention to the language they need. We can show them how they can successfully carry out an activity or do a piece of productive English. But guidance is one of our main roles. And obviously one of the most important aspects of giving guidance in productive skills is the model. There is very often, of course, in a well-written course book, just like you would expect from the Edições ASA material, a very clear model of how the production can be carried out at an accessible but natural level. But it's not always easy for students to take that model and simply personalize it for themselves. A great way to show them how that works is to do your own version, to take the model in the page and change it for yourself, to give your own information, to talk about your own family, your own profession, your own favorite beach activities, whatever it might be. Change that model, show them how it works, and that makes it a little bit more accessible. The change or the transfer from model to personalized production is not always as easy as we might think. And I've got a very important note here, I put it in bold, in fact, that if the aim is speaking, then another very important intermediate stage is drilling that language, giving the students a chance to try it out in a safe, full class environment under the cover of everyone else speaking at the same time, and see how that language feels in their mouth, how it sounds, whether they think they can do it or not. And you can keep a careful eye on how students are producing or not producing, whether it sounds good or not, and give them the chance just to play with that language and see how they can make it sound good for themselves. Drilling as part of the model is a really important step towards successful production in the speaking language, in the speaking activities. So, in terms of taking an activity or taking a little text and personalizing it, this is a text I took from 5th year material. My name is Peter and my surname is Parker, but I'm not Spider-Man, haha. I'm 10 years old and my birthday is on the 1st of October. I'm from London in England. I'm British. There we go. Nice and clear, nice and accessible, reasonably natural, something the students can successful take as their model and move it forward. Another way to do it, rather than your own personalized information, is to just get suggestions from students and encourage them to be a bit silly about it. Take the main items like the name, the surname, the superhero, the age, etc., and substitute them with any crazy idea they come up with. Bit by bit, they can suggest to take out and put in. I teach my students those phrases. Take out Peter, put in, I don't know, Boris, if you like. Anything you like to make it a little bit different, a little bit funny, make it engaging, make it fun, make it memorable, and they can change a text into something like this, for example. My name is not Boris, but Pikachu, and my surname is Pokemon, but I'm not a superhero. I'm 99 years old and my birthday is on the 31st of February. Hang on, that doesn't exist. I'm from Honolulu in Hobbiton. I'm Mandalorian, and why not? All of this is great for students to recognize the syntax and the structure and the communicative purpose of each part of the text, and make it a little fun, make it a little crazy, make it extremely memorable, and change it round as an intermediate stage. Your personalized version, their own silly version, and then they'll be ready to really put it into practice for themselves. Another important thing in terms of guidance is to make sure that the aims and the goals and the outcome of the activity are clear for them, that they know how long they have to do this, that they know what they need to produce by the end, if there's a communicative objective at the end that they need, for example, to make a decision on what restaurant to go to, for example, then they know that all of these are clear for them, and that they know what they're working towards. That's very important in terms of guiding them towards a successful output. And also that they can use whatever communicative competencies they have to achieve the goal. Students in a typical class will obviously always have a range of vocabulary, a range of grammatical accuracy, a range of ability, and some students will be able to produce something which sounds fluent and natural and really hits all the points that they need to for that task. Other students will not be able to do it as smoothly, as well, or as successfully, but they all have some communicative competence which they can put into use to achieve that goal. The simplest vocabulary, the simplest phrases, single words if necessary, but make sure something comes out to achieve the goal, and they can feel at the end that they've done what they could to get to the end point and feel good about it, feel some sense of achievement. The way we can help support students in a writing task is very often by working in a collective, a small group. When they're writing a task, you can have one piece of paper between your group, or between each group of students, and with each new sentence or part of the text, the paper is passed on to the next person in the group. Each person has to write something, but there's always the support of all the rest of the group to help make that part of the sentence as natural or as appropriate as possible. So that student may not have all the communicative abilities to put what they want to into the written form, but with the support of the group, they can do it, and the group at the end can produce something which they're all pleased, satisfied with, and can present to the rest of the class if they want to after the activity is completed. So everyone takes part, everyone puts in at their own level, and then everyone has the support of the rest of the group to bring that level up to fit the rest of the general level of their team. It's a great way to make sure everyone's producing and everyone always has support. You sometimes, of course, need to remind your students that gentle support is more appropriate than criticism or insult, but they get into the habit. And they like the fact that they can work together to produce a text. Now, in terms of expectations, obviously, because we have a range of abilities in our classes, we need to adjust our expectations for students at their level of ability. A phrase that was very popular recently, one of the buzzwords of teaching, I say recently, within the last 10 years, was this idea of demand high. Keep pushing your students. If the students give a correct answer, you might say, yes, well done, but how can you say that differently? What's a different word for that? What's a different verb you can use? Can you use a different conjunction, or can you use a conjunction to join those sentences together? Demanding high, expecting more of your students when you know they're capable of it. But of course, we often also need to accept low. Some students will not be able to meet the demands even of the exercise that's on the page, so we need to help them realize that they can, as we said earlier, use what they've got, make the best effort they can, and then help them see how it can just be made a little bit better in incremental steps. A couple of things to remember. We often have activities in the books, and of course I do this all the time myself in the books that I've written and in the classes I teach. I say, we've done the song, now let's everyone sing along. This is not as easy as it seems. You've probably noticed students singing along to a song which basically involves mouthing the words or the approximate sounds of the words. and making the right sounds to accompany the melody, but not necessarily actually singing anything that approaches English. There are ways to make this more accessible so they can really enjoy joining in with the song, rather than repeating whole sentences or singing whole songs. Groups can sing alternate lines of a song. That means in between each line of the song, that group of students has time to look at what's coming next while the other group are singing the intermediate line and prepare for the next line they need to sing. That little chance to look ahead and get ready is really, really helpful for them. So Group A and Group B, Group A will sing the first line, Group B will sing the second line, Group A will sing the third line, Group B the fourth line, etc. And that means Group A and Group B, in between singing, get a little break, a chance to look ahead and prepare for the next line they have to sing. Strong students, of course, can join in with whatever they want, and it's good to give the whole class a chance to sing the whole song all together. So strong students aren't limited just to singing alternative lines. They do have a chance at the end to sing everything together, from memory even, if they're particularly confident. Also, what we can do is, and in this particular song, which is a great song from fifth year material about clothes, it's an adapted song from a well-known tune, and students really enjoy singing along with these songs you'll find in the Edições ASA Segundo Ciclo material, where there's a really well-known song and it's got new words which are very accessible to students. This one is about clothes and colours. And in the Let's All Sing Along activity, what they could do is sing along simply with the words that they focused on the first time they listened. They had to listen, and this activity they had to decide which was the correct word of the choices in red. And having done that activity, they can join in with only those words. So in the first line, you might have some students who are happy and confident to sing. In the morning, I got it wrong from the first line. In the morning I sit on my bed. I have a big day ahead. Where less confident students can just listen to the song and go, morning. And they've joined in at an appropriate time. They've listened carefully for when their word is coming. They're looking forward in the next lines and seeing where the next word is coming, and waiting and listening and seeing how everything sits together and producing at the level you've asked them to and feeling good about it. Another option which I often put forward to my students is to sing the last word in every line. They tend to be the rhyming words, and they tend to feel better to join in with that last line. So rather than singing, in the morning I sit on my bed, we'll just have students who are listening and following and just go bed, ahead, bad, clothes, and join in with just the key words, enjoy that, being part of the song, producing it at their own level, and maybe the next time when they come to sing the song in the same lesson or at the beginning of the next lesson to do a consolidation, they'll join in with a few more words, maybe a few complete phrases, maybe the whole thing, moving forward step by step. Another thing which I often encourage teachers not to do in these type of activities is to insist on complete sentences. Now, I do see the point of complete sentences in written production when you want to really have students get a grip on the grammatical structure and the syntax of a complete sentence. But when we're looking at a question, for example, the one in the middle of this point here, what day does Jamal have football practice? A very unnatural answer would be, Jamal has football practice on Tuesday, whereas the natural answer would be Tuesday. And when the students are producing something that's short and natural, like this, which completely and fully answers the question they've been asked, then I think that's a really good attitude to encourage, read the question or listen to the question, produce your answer in a natural and simple way, and help students realize that this is fully acceptable. You might want to push the stronger students, if you're demanding high, to say, excellent, now can you put that into a complete sentence? But that students can recognize that simple, appropriate, and accurate information in as little as one word can often be a good and complete answer. And coming back to this idea, as I said before, using what the students have got, using the resource that's available to them. Can't do the whole thing in English? No problem. Do it partly in English. You do have students doing this, don't you? They try to do as much as they can in English, and they use the occasional word. They use a colour or a name of a piece of clothes or a member of the family. And obviously it doesn't sound great, but it's a very important thing to recognize that they should always use what they have available to them to do as much as they can in English. And if they can do it partly in English this time, then next time they can do it a little bit more and a little bit more. They'll change partner, they'll work with someone else, they'll experiment with using a few more words, and their partners can be encouraged to also give them recognition for doing as much as they can in English and dropping in a new word and using a new piece of lexis and using the right verb in English. Incremental steps, partly in English first time, a little more the next time, maybe the whole thing or nearly the whole thing in English a third time, but always using what they have to do as much as they can, rather than if you can't do it in English, all in English, it's not valid. Communication first. Obviously, these production activities are communicative activities and should be treated as such first and foremost. If we're at the stage where students have looked at the model, done their preparation, made their notes, and are now at the stage where they're going to produce their own written text or speak their own presentation or dialogue, then the emphasis at this point should be on communication and fluency and not on accuracy. So this is a stage where it is good, where communication is your priority, to relax the correction a little bit, not to interrupt when students are doing their very best to produce a piece of written work, or especially in the middle of a piece of spoken production, but to encourage them to keep going, to make a note of common mistakes you hear amongst the students. If you have students working in pairs or small groups, to monitor them as they're working, to make a note of the common mistakes you hear. And then in the middle of the first and second attempt, give them a chance to do it again. The whole class correction, a board-based correction where you might write up some incorrect sentences on the board and ask the students to have a look and have a think, what's wrong here? How can we improve this? Good, well done. Were there any more vocabulary that you needed that you didn't have to do this speaking activity or this written activity well? Especially for the speaking activity, they can build that into their next attempt with a new partner and feel that improvement. Students do. They feel the improvement. If you ask them how they felt, they will say that they felt much better the second time around, and that easing off correction in the middle but giving them whole class correction between attempts is a really good way to help them forward. This way you avoid interrupting their fluency, which of course is the main aim for this type of activity, and all students can get the benefit of that correction from before they do the task again, as I said, better the second time around. Making sure that everything is clear to students before you set them off, particularly on a challenging task. A speaking task for many students is going to be challenging. Do they have all the vocabulary they need? Do they understand exactly what the instructions require of them? Do they know what the outcome is of that activity? If we can remove uncertainty, then we'll open the way, as it says, to task achievement, make them feel more confident that they can make it all the way through. I've put in brackets here a little rider that dealing with uncertainty is a very necessary skill when you're communicating in a foreign or additional or second language, there will be many occasions, and this is still my experience after 35 years of learning Portuguese, that I have to deal with uncertainty about what has been said to me, about what I'm reading on the page, especially with bureaucratic language. And I have learnt, obviously, over the years to deal with it and to keep my communication going. But especially for those less confident students, if we can remove as much as necessary and make the activity as clear and as straightforward as necessary, then the maximum number of your students in your class are going to have the maximum confidence to take on that challenge and do it to the best of their ability. So, as a roundup, let's just retouch on some of the main points that we've talked about here. Firstly, that mixed ability within the classroom, as of course we all know, this is nothing new, is inevitable. If students are grouped by age, then we know that students do not all develop at exactly the same speed. They have not all had exactly the same exposure to the language in this case, or whatever other subject they might be studying. You're going to have mixed ability, and you need these quick and adaptable strategies to be able to deal with it on a day-to-day basis. Also, that each student, as we've said, can be challenged according to their own level. We've looked at activities which enable students to be pushed a little further, to be given a little more thinking time, to be have higher expectations or lower expectations to suit their own level at that moment. But if we keep making these incremental developments and changes in the level of challenge, then we can keep helping them move forward and feel better and better about the level of their production. As I said at the very beginning, what we can do is try to avoid this time-consuming preparation for very little return. It is helpful to make alternative handouts, alternative versions of texts and templates, etc. Don't forget, the Edições ASA Segundo Ciclo material does all that for you. What you need on a day-to-day basis are tried and tested strategies and approaches. And that's what I hope you can take away from this session. And to keep an open mind about how below or above average, how confident or lacking in confidence those students may be. And remember that they will be making incremental changes. Some will make rapid developments in their level, and we need to keep recognizing this and upping the level of challenge according to how well they're progressing and what they can do. And the last thing to say is thank you once again for joining me. I hope I haven't tried your patience too much. I hope there's something in this session that you can take away and apply in your classes on a day-to-day basis. How many times have I said that? But it's really that question of adapting your teaching to suit your students' level, lesson by lesson, activity by activity, incremental change by incremental change, and helping everyone realize they can move forward. Thank you for listening, and enjoy your mixed ability classes. Bye now.
Lei Educação. Ponto de encontro.